So if we're looking, tangent is y over x. So I'm curious, and actually let's go start at 0, you guys. Let's make our lives a little easier. At 0 radians, what's my y over x here? 0 over 1 is just 0. What about at pi over 4, you guys? Pi over 4, what's my y over x? 1. You guys are getting good. At pi over 2, what's my y over x? Undefined. Interesting. That's what Ritzy just said are where my vertical asymptotes are, and you're so right, Ritz. What about 3 pi over 4? What's my y over x going to be here? -1, right? Positive over negative to get me a -1. How about at pi? Y over x. 0. 5 pi over 4. Psh. Negative over a negative. Positive 1. 3 pi over 2. Undefined. -1 over 0 would be undefined. Okay, can we go backwards? Let's start here, actually. Negative pi over 4. If positive pi over 4 is right here, negative pi over 4 is going to be right there. Y over x. What do we think, people? Say it again. -1. Appreciate it. -1. If positive pi over 2 is here, negative pi over 2 is here. Y over x. Undefined. -3 pi over 4, -1 4th, 2 fourths, 3 fourths. What do you think about my y over x? Negative over negative is a +1. Negative pi, y over x, 0, awesome. -5 pi over 4, -1 4th, 2 fourths, 3 fourths, 4 fourths, 5 fourths. -1, well done. Last one. -1 half, -2 halves, -3 halves pi, y over x, undefined. So, sine and cosine were little like siblings, right? They were so similar to another, but tangent, obviously, once we looked at that on the calculator, is way different. I say let's go put in our undefineds. Let's go put in our undefineds, and that's in the form of a vertical asymptote, you guys. Every time we've got, so at positive pi over 2, I've got a vertical asymptote. And at positive 3 pi over 2, I've got a vertical asymptote. Negative pi over 2 and -3 pi over 2. We got the point 0, 0. So just like sine, tangent starts with the origin. Then look what it does. At pi over 4, we're at 1. You guys, if this was half of a pi, this is going to be a quarter of a pi. And let's make this 1. Let's make our axes go up by 1. So this will be 1. You know what I'm saying here, people? Boop. And then if we got to go negative pi over 4, to the left a fourth of a pi, we're going to go down to -1. Blake, do you agree these look quite linear? Okay, but when I look at this in my calculator, that does not look linear. So Blake, what these vertical asymptotes mean is hug the asymptote, and then you're going to go through those points, but don't do it zigzaggy. Do it nice and fluidly. Okay, nice and fluid, you guys. So, you guys, then we have a pattern. 3 pi over 4 is -1. Pi is 0. 5 pi over 4 is +1. We've got, that looks great, bud. We've got these, we've got these 3 points that are always going from left to right. We're going up and to the right. And they look like they're in a straight line, like 3 dots in a row. But when you go make the graph, just make sure you hug those vertical asymptotes and you go through those points nice and curvily instead of zigzaggily. Jaggedly, if you will. There's nothing jagged about a tangent graph. Yesterday, the sine and cosine had a period of how much? 2 pi. What's the period now of a tangent graph? 1 pi. Because from negative pi over 2 to pi, you with me, Cooper? So now the tangent has a period of only 1 pi. Sine and cosine were 2 pi, so just be careful about that sucker. Domain. Except every vertical asymptote, right? Because of those x values, it didn't exist. So we could say all real numbers, except where x is what?
Pi over 2 times n.
He's saying pi over 2 or n times pi over 2. And look what I specified here, Coop. I said as long as n is an odd integer. Do you feel good about that, Coop?
Yeah.
Because look, let's look at our table. Where was this happening? These were happening at 1 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 5 pi over 2, right? Because Coop, wouldn't 2 pi over 2 be 1 pi?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do have to specify. I did that there for you. Again, I'm not going to ask you guys to do that on a test or quiz. I just think it's important. Range, how low and how high? Yeah, negative infinity to infinity. We could do negative infinity to infinity if you prefer. The x-intercepts, oh yeah, what about the x-intercepts? X-intercepts are where we cross the x-axis. Yeah, so we're happening at 0 and at 1 pi and at 2 pi. So we're saying the x-intercepts are every pi n,
Yep.
or n pi, however you want to say it. My y-intercept, that happens once.
0.
Crosses that y-axis at 0. That's the only time. And then I don't know why I had to say this again, but the asymptotes are when x is what?
Pi over 2n.
Pi over 2, n, when n is a odd integer. So now I want you guys to try this one. Try to graph that graph of tangent one more time. Again, just practice is imperative on these. And then try these 3 questions. And then we're going to come together for a Kahoot.